Northern Ireland Chamber of Commerce and Industry are delighted to partner with Narratology, the Belfast-based executive search and selection consultancy, on a high-profile and inspirational CEO in Conversation With podcast series. This series will feature the stories of business leaders from across various sectors of Northern Ireland's commercial and industrial community, with the aim of inspiring listeners by sharing the experiences of our C-suite guests. Hello and a very warm welcome to the first episode of Northern Ireland Chamber's podcast series In Conversation With. I'm Mark Devenport and I'll be your host, and if my voice and name sounds familiar, that's because I was BBC Northern Ireland's political editor for nearly 20 years before stepping down last October. Today I'll be chatting to Dr. Dennise Broderick. Dennise is Managing Director and President of the Galen Limited organisation, a member of the Almac Group, having taken up the role in September 2018. She's responsible for all aspects of the specialist pharmaceutical company's operations, marketing and governance across its sites globally. Welcome to In Conversation with Dennise Broderick. Can you first of all give me an idea of your background?
Yeah, hi Mark. Lovely to be here and thanks a million for asking me to do this. Yeah, so a whistle-stop tour of myself. I was born and raised in a very small village in County Cork, the eldest of four siblings. And I suppose my early background to get me into this industry was a degree in biochemistry. And then I followed that with a PhD in oncology and cancer genetics. I very quickly realized in the wonderful world of academia that it wasn't for me. I tended to talk far too much, to be in a lab all day, and really just realized that while I loved science, the passion to stay in the academic setting just wasn't there. My second big love, I suppose, in that area was business. So when I finished my doctorate, I decided I was going to move to the dark side, as many people told me at the time, and move into the business arena. And the logical step for me was the pharmaceutical industry, where I got to combine my passions of science and business together. Started out as a sales rep with Novartis in Ireland. And then over many years, took on different roles, moved up, sideways, across the water, worked in organizations, both big and small, worked in big pharma, small pharma companies, worked overseas, America, Australia, Australasia, many parts of Europe. So I've had extensive time in this industry to be exposed to many different businesses, many different geographical locations, been involved in the medical device side of the business, specialties, pharmaceuticals, generics, you name it, I've probably touched it in some capacity or other. For the last, I suppose, 10 years plus, I've been in senior leadership roles, very passionate about leadership. I believe that it's a blessing. And I think, it's a privilege to lead people and organizations. And of course, like you said in your introduction, 2.5 years ago, I came to Galen to take up this role and been having a wonderful time ever since.
So why Galen and why Northern Ireland?
Yeah, so when this role came my way, I was absolutely fascinated by it. I was fascinated firstly by the company and the legacy of the company. I mean, anybody that's familiar with Galen or indeed the Almac Group knows the richness of its legacy, having been founded by Sir Alan MacLeay over 50 years ago. And that really intrigued me, and everything that I knew about this organisation, it really spoke to my values as a person and who I was. That coupled with the fact that here was this role, a role that I was hugely interested in, and it was on my doorstep. I could still travel and take up this global role out of Northern Ireland. So it gave me everything I wanted in life. It gave me a career opportunity that I was highly excited by. And it also gave me the ability to be near family, friends and loved ones. And also as well, I'm passionate about Northern Ireland. I've met and worked with many Northern Ireland people over my years in this industry, and I love their attitude and, their can-do ability and their great sense of humor. And taking up this role has also afforded me the opportunity to see more of this beautiful country, because there's so much we have to offer. So Galen actually ticked all the boxes for me and where I was in my career at the time.
And can you give us an idea of how the first 2.5 years has worked out at Galen, an idea about your day-to-day job, the kind of products that you're concentrating on?
Yeah, so the last 2.5 years have been, I suppose, in some ways, what I would say is they've been a bit of a whirlwind. I came into the organization very, very mindful, like I said in my past answer, about the legacy that Galen had been built on. And I was really wanting to be very respectful to that legacy. There are a lot of employees in Galen and in the group worldwide who have worked in this organization for a very long time. So when I came in, I really wanted to learn as much as I could about the organization and about the people and what it stood for. But of course, I also wanted to come in with a fresh pair of eyes and see, how could we build upon that solid foundation and grow and develop the organization as best we could. And that has really been what the last 2.5 years have been about. There has been a lot of organizational change that I've had to address. We had to look at it with a fresh perspective, what was working for us, what was not working for us. And that's always challenging, to come in and to have to say at times, which at the end of the day is my job, that we're going to take some new directions because what's been done here isn't really paying dividends for where we want to go. So some tough decisions had to be made, and I'm very grateful that the people came along with me, but they came along with me because the first thing I did was instill a culture. There's a very strong culture in Almac and in Galen, but we had to get better at living that culture. That culture which we've created here today is one of honesty, openness, transparency. I believe in the ability to give people the opportunity to fail. I don't believe failure is a bad thing. I don't even use the word actually. I believe that that's just another way to relearn, to change the direction. And it was really about empowering people to grow and develop through taking chances, because pharmaceutical companies have to be about, at times, taking chances and innovating. So over the last 2.5 years, there's been a lot of that change in mindset. Of course, needless to say, we never anticipated 2.5 years ago that we would sit in the middle of a pandemic. But hey ho, that's the world that we live in today, and that's brought its own challenges, certainly. But I can honestly say the last 2.5 years have been wonderful for me personally, great for me professionally. We have grown the business significantly. In the last 2.5 years, we acquired a company based out of Scandinavia, which will go on to become our Northern European headquarters. We're in the process of launching our new Northern European headquarters for Galen. We've grown the business in the US. We've significantly expanded the business through our global footprint with partners. And we've been very instrumental in developing our people through, career development, different opportunities, promotions, and recruitment. We like to attract very good talent, and I'm very blessed that in Northern Ireland, there's a significant amount of really good talent out there, and we offer them the opportunity to do what they do best in their own local playground, for want of a better word.
You mentioned your new European headquarters. Of course, whilst the company grew up in Craigavon, it's now got a number of bases around the world. How difficult is that for you working across those different sites?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, as a group, we have over 18 locations worldwide. For Galen, we have significantly less than that because a lot of our locations, obviously, because we bring medicines direct to the healthcare professional and the patient, we have a lot more remote working with our sales teams. And it has been interesting, how do you instill a culture with people who tend to work remotely? And that has always been a challenge. Actually, indeed, throughout my entire career, that's been a challenge, because in the pharmaceutical arena that Galen plays in, which is the commercial end of the business, you're always dealing with sales teams and people who are based face to face with the customer. Up until COVID, I suppose I would have been very active in traveling, always at the different sites, always out with my key account managers, meeting our clients, meeting our partners, meeting our healthcare professionals that use our range of medicines, and indeed being active in the hospitals and supporting the team as best I could. Unfortunately, in COVID times, we've been unable to do that due to the restrictions, just like everybody else in the world. So we've had to identify other ways of doing that. So Teams became very, very popular over the last 12 months. I have to say, I think I have said "you are on mute" more often than I've ever said it in my life, and things like that. But we've embraced the idea of virtual working. So certainly for me, we have found new ways of navigating the current climate. But again, I do not think there's any substitute for person-to-person interaction. We're also very fortunate, I suppose, that a lot of the partners that we engage with are very like-minded. So again, that allows us to drive forward with similar cultures, similar can-do attitudes, being the best that we can be. The other thing for me, in answer to your question as well, is, I have very, very strong leaders that lead in the different regions in which we're in. And I believe that any leader is only as good as the people that they surround themselves with. And I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by a very strong executive team, very strong senior management team in Galen, and indeed a very strong, wider team, because everybody is aligned in Galen. We're all clear about the strategy. Everybody's contribution matters. It does not matter what your role is in this organization, your role matters. And then, of course, being given the support and the encouragement from my Almac colleagues, and the board of Almac and the CEO of this group, who's always so supporting and encouraging, it just makes the job an awful lot easier.
Well, you've mentioned the challenges posed by the pandemic a couple of times already. I gather that the company has played a role in the battle against the virus. Can you tell me a bit about that, and also the kind of twin challenges that all sections of the commercial world in Northern Ireland face and have faced in recent months, which has been COVID and the Brexit changes all happening at the same time?
Yeah, so I'll start with COVID, I suppose. I mean, absolutely. I think if anything, COVID has shown us that none of us are really in control of what goes on in the world. And I think in some ways it was quite a humbling experience for us that like to control things within the business arena. Certainly it was for me, best laid plans and all of that. So I'll start first with Galen. I suppose, in COVID, our number one priority was continuing to get our medicines to patients. We have a lot of medicines that are very, very important in the emergency department arena, and it was really vital that the supply chain for those were not interrupted during this time. And that was our primary focus. How do we continue to ensure that our patients are getting what they need at any specific time? We also have a lot of products that are for metabolic diseases, and these people, need to be on these medicines every single day. So again, we really focused on our logistics, our training, how were our people, getting this medicine to where they needed it to go. And thankfully, that has continued to be our primary focus through COVID. And we're very proud to say that there was no disruption of those medicines at any time. And then, the second thing was our people. Keeping our own people safe was of paramount importance to me personally and to the senior leadership team, both in the wider group context, but also within Galen. We have many people on site that come to work every day to do an essential business, and we needed to make sure that they were kept safe at all times following government regulations. So they were the two main priorities for us within the COVID arena. Brexit has been an interesting I suppose, challenge over the last few years. Anybody that's in industry, and I don't believe it matters what industry you're in or where you're in that industry, Brexit has certainly brought its own, I suppose, nuances. For us in Galen, there were a number of things, firstly, that we needed to focus on. Again, very similar to COVID, patience, availability, medicines. Do we get our medicines to the people that need it when Brexit is implemented? The ABPI were instrumental in giving us, and indeed many within the industry, guidance, and we followed that guidance. There's currently, as you're aware, a 12-month deal in place. We're following those guidelines, and just like everybody else in this industry, and certainly I believe in Northern Ireland, we just wait to get regular updates, and as they come, if things need to be changed, we change them. From a group perspective, we needed to ascertain what was important to our clients. And in a time of uncertainty, the greatest thing that you can give anybody, be it client, be it patient, be it healthcare professional, is certainty. So when Brexit was announced, Almac made the decision to invest heavily in becoming Brexit ready. They built a £30 million unit in Dundalk that allowed them to be set up for having an area in Europe should they require it. And that's gone on to give huge certainty to our partners within Almac. So we were very Brexit ready and have continued to be Brexit savvy throughout this entire thing. I should also mention, Mark, as well, just something that was an oversight on my part, was the group itself played a huge part as well in COVID, because actually as a group, we were involved in over 80 separate crucial research projects into the COVID-19 treatment options. And that involved, discovery, sciences, many different areas in terms of being involved in some of the clinical trials in the US with the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine. So again, we've certainly played our part in that arena as well within COVID.
That's fascinating because, of course, whilst we're all very concerned about the pandemic and the recent third wave, I suppose you could call it, that we've had, we do know that the treatments have improved at least, and you played your part in that.
Yes, yeah, very, very excited to be part of that, and very grateful, I suppose, to be of service in a time where the world truly needed, the industry to step up and do the best it could by bringing these vaccines to the marketplace as quickly as possible. And certainly Almac and Galen have been very proud to do their part in that space, and signs on. It's wonderful to now see vaccines being rolled out globally in terms of dealing with COVID-19.
What do you see now, Dennise, as your key business challenges as you look to the future?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mark. I mean, the big challenges for Galen at the moment are, growth. How do we grow? How do we develop? How do we expand? How do we move forward? Regardless of the landscape, this just comes down to pure strategy. Our strategy within Galen is to grow through acquisitions, through product portfolio acquisitions, through partnering with the right people, with like-minded companies, through distribution agreements, through global expansion. That has to become our primary focus. But that also is a challenge. It's always a challenge to identify the right opportunities, to identify acquisitions that are good cultural fits. We were very fortunate, like I said, to acquire a company based out of Scandinavia, and we're certainly in active mode in terms of looking for these opportunities. So if anybody's listening to this and has opportunities that they'd like to bring my way, please feel free to reach out. We're always in the market for something new once it's aligned on all sides. So growth will continue to be our biggest challenge, and how do we do this? The second big challenge, I think, is, how do we continue, or how do I personally continue to motivate the people that work in Galen? I have such an amazing group of people that work in this organization. We have an amazing group of people that work across this group. And as a leader, it's my responsibility to ensure that they show up to work, they feel they're valued, they feel they're heard, they feel they're appreciated. That's very personally important to me. And that's the question I ask myself regularly is, what's the next challenge to that? When I'm not able to get out there and be with them, how am I showing up and doing that? That will continue to be a challenge, I believe. We talk a lot in Galen about being the best version of ourselves, accepting that on any given day that version can change. But how am I living that? So in a very snapshot of that, our challenge business wise is the continued growth and expansion through our acquisitions, through partnering and through global expansion. And on a personally professional level, it's how do I continue to show up and be the best that I can be for the people that I'm privileged to lead within this organization.
You referred there to if anyone has an opportunity. I assume you kind of mean some sort of potential scientific breakthrough that could lead to a successful drug in the future. Is there any bit of you that thinks maybe I should have stuck with the research background because you were there researching away in cancer genetics? Would you have enjoyed a life in a white coat?
No, certainly not. I'll categorize that immediately with a no. I have no longing to go back into research, or you look back and not once have I regretted the decision to move into business. I think the great thing for me today is I still get to be actively involved in the research side of it. Galen has a number of research and development projects that are ongoing. And that's exciting for me because I still get to bring my expertise to the table. But no, definitely do not regret staying in there. And just want to quantify as well, Mark, yes, of course, we're very open to innovative ideas. And if anybody is looking at developing a drug, we're absolutely willing to speak to them. But what I was also talking about was, there may be some little companies out there that are looking to sell, or there may be some pharma people out there that have some products that they think we might be interested in. So I'm casting the net wide on that one in terms of partnering and acquisition opportunities. But I am smiling as you asked me that question, because no, and truthfully, I make a far better business person than I think I would have made a researcher. I leave that to the people who are very, very good at it indeed.
So at this stage in your career, what is it that motivates you personally?
Yeah, another great question. I alluded to it a little bit earlier when we were talking. I think for me, being the best I can be every day is really, really important to me. What's the standard I am holding myself accountable to? And that's a very personal motivation for me. I absolutely accept that I'm human. I mightn't like to accept it some days. Some days I prefer to be superhuman, but I am human. So it has been a long journey to accepting that my best on any given day changes. Family, friends, loved ones, they are huge motivation for me personally. I'm very blessed to have wonderful people in my life who truthfully, build me up when I'm feeling down, are never afraid to be honest with me, who are always there for me through the thick and the thin. And another great motivator for me is being of service. I've been very fortunate in my life to have had great role models, both in my family and in the people that I get to interact with on a daily basis today that show me what it is to be of service. So for me, it's, how can I help somebody else? How can I extend a hand? How can I make somebody's day a little bit better, both professionally or personally? That really motivates me. And then finally, I think, and this is an ongoing journey, definitely, Mark, is gratitude. On the days where I'm feeling, because we all have them, a bit low or a bit fed up or a bit unmotivated, one of the places that I go to is gratitude. What can I be grateful for today? And sometimes it may just be as simple as there's hot water in the tap, when I turn it on. It's nothing more profound than that. Or I was able to, have a hot shower this morning, or get into a car and go from A to B. But I do find for me, when I'm in that space, gratitude always snaps me out of myself and reminds me that I have so much to be grateful for. And that's very important to me.
On a day-to-day basis, what does success look like? What's the difference between a good day and a bad day in the office for you?
So I suppose first and foremost, and it's funny because this is actually one of our pillars in Galen, a pillar that we build ourselves on is have we had fun? So success for me first and foremost looks like a day where did I come to work? Did I enjoy what I did? Did we have fun? Even if there was challenges on the table, even if we might have had disagreements, did I leave the office today feeling, gosh, that was a really fun day where we did a lot of good, where, we might have gotten the answers to something and maybe we didn't. But, all interactions were done in a respectful, appropriate, and kind manner. Another way I suppose I personally benchmark success for me is, did the people around me feel like they had achieved something? At the end of the day, I'm a business person, so I'm not going to lie to you. Of course, I love to see the numbers. First and foremost, we're a sales and marketing organization. We are about the bottom line. We are about the EBITDA. We are about the revenue. Let's make no mistake about that. But I'm hugely passionate about how we get there. So for me, success looks like, did we achieve the results we wanted to achieve, and did we do them in the right way? Did we achieve those results in an honest, transparent, fun way, and did everybody enjoy the journey? Because too often I think, and I did this certainly early in my career, I was so focused on the results, Mark, I forgot to enjoy the adventure along the way. And for me today, I have learned that the adventure is every bit as important as the end destination.
Finally, Dennise, and thanks for joining us on this podcast. Looking back at your career, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give your 20-year-old self if she was just starting out on a career in pharma?
Apart from the fashion tips, Mark, which I'd probably start with looking at some of those old photographs, I can tell you. Probably where I would start is say, don't be afraid to take risks. They'll all pay off. They mightn't seem like that at the time, but even the ones that don't pay off in the way that you thought, they'll be your greatest lesson. That would probably be the first piece of advice I'd give. I'd have also definitely told my 20-year-old self to not take life too seriously. Have fun. Smile at other people. That might be the only piece of kindness they get all throughout the day. And then the kindness piece, be kind, Dennise, to those you meet along the way, regardless of whether you agree with them, disagree with them, whether they irritate you, don't irritate you. You may irritate them, but be kind, because at the end of the day, and I truly believe this, Mark, we're all just trying to do the best we can with what we have in any given moment. And if we can treat each other with kindness and compassion around that, I think the world would be a much better place as a result of it. And certainly the business world would be a much better place as a result of that attitude. So yeah, I think that's what I tell my 20-year-old self.
A good bit of advice to end this podcast on. Thanks very much, Dr. Dennise Broderick, and thanks to all of you listening to In Conversation With, the first in a series of podcasts with me, Mark Devenport, from the Northern Ireland Chamber for Commerce and Industry.